Hello, everybody. My name is Graham Elwood, and you are watching Boom, the Political Vigilante, the People's Channel. The People's Channel. Especially if you're sober and you work a program. If you're living in the chaos of unrecovered life, saying, I'm always right. Oh, it's got to be a sad place. But that's not why you're here. You're here because you are the smartest, best audience on the interwebs. You're critical thinkers. You can watch the show and maybe you agree with some of the stuff. Maybe when I say something you don't agree with, you don't flip out and go, Graham, I don't agree with you. I'm crazy. I need a YouTuber to be my parents because I didn't have them. I hope you just come here for information. I hope you come here to be part of a community of people that are trying to make the world a better place. And we might not agree on how to do it, but we all agree the world should be a better place. We agree that we don't want a world run by billionaires. We agree that we don't want a world that's just about war, where working class people are screwed every day. We want to be in a world where people are taken care of, right? So that's why you watch the show. And part of what I'm assuming you watch the show for, one of the things we do here on this show, is we call out the American media. So an American spy plane was trying to spy on China. I want to back up for a second. Imagine if a Chinese spy plane got near our airspace or any of our territories, was like near Guam or Puerto Rico, or even like the state of Hawaii. We have a lot of military bases on Guam, on obviously we have 5 bases just on the island of Oahu or something like that. Or any of our bases, a Chinese spy plane was trying to fly over any of our bases. We have hundreds of bases all over the world. We would go absolutely nuts. So a US spy plane was trying to spy on China, and China's fighters intercepted it. So rather than like, the US got caught spying, CNN, this is CNN's version. CNN is trying to make it like the Chinese are acting aggressive towards your spy plane. It's like, man, I broke into this guy's house to steal stuff. And when he caught me, he was all mad and yelling at me. He's just out of control. Can't a guy break into someone's house and try to steal like their banking documents to rob them without everyone getting all violent? That's basically what they're doing. So here's I saw this on CNN.com. Oh, America. Oh, we got to watch this ad from this dumb bear. No, it's about bears. I'm talking over it because they're not paying any money and I can't get around this, but this is the only way for me to show this segment on CNN.com. So they have to make their ads. We're just, please don't watch that. It's really dumb. God, what a stupid ad. This is the world we live in. We have to watch these horrible ads with this dumb bear butthole family. How about just get a bidet?
Intercepted a U.S. spy plane in international airspace over the South China Sea. They're calling it an unnecessarily aggressive maneuver as part of the intercept. Take a look here. This is from the cockpit of the U.S. aircraft, the RC-135. That Chinese fighter jet off to the right there as it cuts in front, essentially slices right in front of the U.S. aircraft at fairly close range. And that turbulence there, that is from wake turbulence off the back of that Chinese fighter jet. Again, the U.S. is calling this an aggressive maneuver, saying that it was essentially unsafe and unprofessional. We have seen intercepts like this sort of tension between Chinese fighter jets and U.S. aircraft before. In fact, there was one in December, a different type of Chinese fighter jet, but essentially the same situation. The U.S. said that their fighter jet came within 20 feet in that instance of the same U.S. aircraft, the RC-135 rivet joint. The U.S.'s position is clear here. They insist they will continue to operate in a safe and professional maneuver anywhere essentially that international law allows. And therein lies the dispute. For the U.S., airspace over much of the South China Sea is international airspace over international waters. China, however, claims much of the South China Sea as its own territorial waters, and therefore believes that it is the U.S. invading on their territory, a position the U.S. does not recognize. It is, at this point, one in a number of elements or aspects adding tension to the relationship between Beijing and Washington at this point. We're seeing that play out in a different environment as well, Jake. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin in the Indo-Pacific for the Shangri-La dialogue. He was trying to set up a meeting with his Chinese counterpart, China rejecting that dialogue, Jake. So you see that tension playing out across different aspects of the relationship.
All right. Again, no mention of like, why was the U.S. there? Okay, so it's disputed. Imagine if China was just like flying in like, you know, the Gulf of Mexico or something, just like, oh, these are international waters. I mean, that's what we're doing. If China was like flying around Central America, what would we do? How would we react? So this is us provoking China because they're not flying in our airspace. You'll notice we're flying in theirs, right? So we're provoking them because we need to get to war with them because they are crushing us economically. I've talked to you about we've talked about the BRICS countries, right? Brazil, Russia, China, India, South Africa. They are forming an economic unity. And also it's giving military cover for like India and Brazil, which don't really have much of a military, or South Africa, obviously. They're getting off the dollar. And this is the real threat. This is China is not a threat to us militarily at all. We outspend them like 4-1. We spend about our last budget was $858 billion. They spend about just under $200 billion a year. So literally, I've said this before, we could cut our military budget in half and still outspend them by $200 billion a year. So we threaten and provoke them and then say, China's crazy. This is what we do. Imagine if I marched down in front of your house with a gun and a tank and a carload full of guys with guns, and then you went and got a gun and stood on your front door with your gun, and then I went, whoa, you're nuts. I'm threatening you. The biggest military in the history of the human race is threatening China. So let's look a couple. I like doing this in real time. Let's go to opensecrets.org, right? Let's go to opensecrets.org. Defense spending on CNN. Not can, autocorrect. Let's go defense spending. Media. Let's find that. I like finding out. Well, let's just do defense spending. Defense industry 2022. Defense Spectre sent $101 million on lobbying during the first 3 quarters of 2022. Oh, spent over $101 million on federal lobbying during the first 3 quarters. And affiliates of these companies have contributed $175 million to members of Congress during the 22 midterm election cycle. 17.5 million. I want to make sure I got that correct. Congress is expected to pass the largest Pentagon spending bill after the midterm election, which they did. This is from November 3 of 2022. The The top 5 military contractors received more money from the federal government than any other government contractor from 2016 to 2021. Lockheed Martin, Boeing, General Dynamics, our good friends at Raytheon, and Northrop Grumman. Look at that. Lockheed Martin gets the biggest. Look at that. Look how much money they got. These 5 contractors received more money from the Department of Defense and federal government than any other contractor since 2016. Only Pfizer breached the top 5 Department of Defense contractor ranks during 2021 amid the coronavirus vaccine rollout that year. The defense sector is spending less money on federal lobbying this year than it has in prior years as demand for weapons to Ukraine continues and the U.S. flirts with great power competition against Russia and China. I really think inflation is driving this thing. Members of the Armed Services Appropriations Committee attract most defense sector contributions. Members of Congress who have received the most money from the defense industry this cycle. Mike Rogers, Republican from Alabama. Ken Calvert from California. Chucky the Shoom, our top Democrat. Look at it, 300,000. Look at that. Calvert, 390, 440 for Mikey Rogers. Adam Smith. Barely got beat. Barely got beat by Rob Whitman. Betty McCollum, good to see the ladies getting in on this fucking filthy warmongering. Raphael Warnock. Oh, that's the guy. Remember the guy in Georgia that we need to stop the Trump appointed blah, blah, blah. Oh, he's getting a lot of money from the war machine. Look at this filthiness. They're such maggots. Defense sector cites inflation to justify increased Pentagon budget. All right. Just want to show you that's the real reason. And somewhere in there is a bunch of money they spent on ads on CNN, and they get their experts to go on CNN and Fox and MSNBC and talk about this. Unreal. So we're trying to start a war with China because they're kicking our ass economically, because China is not running around the world bombing it and sanctioning it. China, through its Silk Road Initiative, is giving money to all of these countries, building ports, stadiums, schools, trains. They're doing all the stuff. They're helping Africa's infrastructure. We're not. We don't do that. We just bomb and sanction everybody. We sanction the whole, like most of Central and South America, and then, wonder why there's a migrant crisis. Like, why? Why would anyone want to leave their home? Yeah, because America's ruined it. Maduro just visited Lula in Brazil. Maduro was not welcomed by Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro was a right-wing fascist, but he played ball with the United States, so he could do, we let him do whatever he want. And Maduro wasn't welcome there. Central South America, Asia, Russia, they're all lining up. America is going to be so isolated, and we're facing a housing bubble and a commercial real estate bubble. What does that have to do with China? Well, America is going to face an complete economic collapse, and then we won't have any more money to sanction and spend money on war. Then what are we going to do? China knows this, so they're just waiting us out. And America is run by corrupt idiots that are bought and paid for. Follow the money, connect the dots, get the truth. Shave your knuckles for justice. Thanks for supporting our show, everybody. Go to GrahamElwood.com and sign up for our newsletter. You get a free vegan smoothie recipe. We have tour dates coming up. A lot of cool stuff is happening. Anything Can Happen game show. We're going to be doing more of those live. So support what we're doing, everybody. Go to patreon.com/GrahamElwood and rockfin.com/GrahamElwood and shave your knuckles for justice. Boom.